right, cool. Awesome. So the second task for this week, I really just want you to practice the types of solid question now that we're at the very end of it. You basically can do a third of the exam. Um, but before you jump into doing the CPR quiz that I've posted or the CPR quiz that's posted with this assignment, is that I want to kind of do an overview of how this question works, just so you are aware of it. And I would highly suggest that you do a decent amount of study before you tackle the CPR quiz, so that way you are actually prepared to do the quiz. Anyway, with this types of solid question, like I said, the first thing that you really need to be mindful of is classifying these types of solids and making sure you classify them correctly. They very often start with one of these tables, and it's the setup for your long answer. And if you misclassify it, it snowballs, and then the whole rest of the question gets marked wrong, and there's no points for that, which is really unfortunate. So you could be writing the right information for that type of solid, but if that substance isn't that type of solid, you don't get your points. So do take your time to answer that. The other thing to keep in mind about this is you should only get one of each category. You shouldn't be doubling up anywhere. If you're doubling up somewhere and you're classifying two things as covalent networks, then you've probably made a mistake somewhere. And the whole reason why I say that is because they want you to be able to compare and contrast. So you can't compare and contrast things if you are comparing and contrasting two of the same type of solid. So do keep that in mind. It's a nice little safety net. Anyway, the way they ask these questions then is they pick a property and then they pick some types of solids and they ask you to compare and contrast the two together. So the first one that they commonly ask together is electrical conductivity, and they'll chop and change it each year. So they might do this property this year and this property the next year. So with the types of with the electrical conductivity, there's lots of different ways they can present that information. In some ways, they give you the substance name, they tell you if it conducts electricity, and they also mention if it's molten or not, because we know with ionic solids that it being molten does affect it. Other times, they won't name the type of solid and they'll just be very vague and just say solid A, but they'll give you a description of what it's able to do, and from there you should be able to go, oh, even though I don't have a name for substance A, it has the properties of an ionic solid. So do kind of keep that in mind. What else did I have to add? Again, take the hints when you're reading it. Potassium chloride, I can see that's a non-metal and a metal, so that must be an ionic solid. And then also, like I said, read the rest of the question and take hints. So I see phosphorus trichloride here is a liquid at room temperature. That tells me it has a very low melting point, and so that's a covalent molecular. So use the hints in the question to help you. So electrical conductivity. Next question they tend to ask is on solubility. Now, I haven't done the lesson on solubility yet. I want to first do Lewis structures, shapes, polarity, and then solubility. So hold off on looking at any of the solubility questions. These kind of move around. Sometimes they're with the types of solid question. Sometimes they're with the Lewis structures and shape question. It really just depends. But you can have a look at this later. The main thing to remember is that they tend to like to ask about ions, they tend to ask about molecules, and then things obviously like covalent networks and metals are not soluble. They're pretty solid things. For example, you can't dissolve a metal ring in water. Cool. Another one they like to ask about property-wise is malleability. So basically what happens when you hit it with a hammer and does the shape change? Again, with this one, they really like to ask obviously about the metals. They also like to ask about the ions because the ions are very brittle and you can explain it really well with the like charges aligning and then repelling. They will often stick in covalent molecular because they have weak intermolecular forces that are easy to break. So do keep that in mind. And again, like they said, they chop and change a lot of things. So even though they are asking about ductility, they'll also ask you to compare solubility and electrical conductivity. So be mindful that the property isn't always in isolation. It could be part of like a multi-layer question. Cool. Melting and boiling points. This one, again, really, really common. This is the one I'm saying to look for if you're struggling to tell the difference between a covalent molecular and a covalent network. Again, sometimes they don't give you any formulas or names of what you are dealing with as your solid, and you classify the solid based off the property. So don't be thrown off if you see something like this. The main thing that you have to remember when you're answering a melting and boiling point style question is that you need to have all the layers. So you should be talking about the forces between the particles, the strength of those forces, how much energy it will require to break that force, and then lastly, therefore, high, low, melting point, boiling point. So you do want to make sure you have all your layers, because if you miss a layer and you just jump from those are strong bonds and therefore has a high melting and boiling point, you've missed the layer on energy requirements and they won't give you that excellence point. So do keep that in mind. Cool. So that's kind of my summary on the questions and how they kind of group them together. I would suggest it's really worth your while, especially before you do the CPR quiz, to do this Venn diagram and to compare and contrast the 4 different types of solids. You don't have to put them in the order that I put them in, but I have thought about it when I was overlaying which ones would actually be good to overlay against each other because they have some similarities. And it's just a really good way to organize your thoughts. So if you have the time or if you're really struggling, I suggest take a moment and just do this so that way you can have a think about their properties, and also it helps give you a good setup for that compare and contrast question that you'll see on the exam, because like I said, they often give you 2 things or more than 2 things and they ask you to compare them, and this will help you know what to do when comparing them. All right, that's that.